everyone. Well, we have a great presentation Ken's going to provide for us on the just kind of an overall state of the market. I feel like is kind of a good summary of it. Would you like me to just pump through the slides for you, or do you want to stand up here and flip through them?
If you want to just yeah, there we go. Can I just flip through?
Yeah,
all right, great.
Perfect.
I started a timer, but you can feel free to continue to drink. So Denise called and she said, "Hey Ken, do you believe in free speech?" And I said, "Of course I do. I'm a patriot." She said, "Well, will you come talk to us?" So here I am, happy to share a few thoughts. What I thought we'd do today is three things. First is talk about what we say about Atlanta when we're talking to corporates about relocating, so you can sort of see behind the scenes of what we say about our city to others. The second is to talk sort of macro to micro about the office market, and then spend a little bit of time on Buckhead specifically. So what I hope you'll get is a couple of trends, and I want to deputize each one of you that when you're talking about our city, it matters. When you're at Thanksgiving and people say, "What's it like to live in Atlanta?" Words matter. I mean, sure, we have traffic. Traffic is the dryer lint of success. We're going to have traffic, but there are a lot of things you can say about our city that are authentic and that will help us. And if we all are, go out there, especially as real estate professionals, and tell the story, good things can happen. Just hit this. Let's see. Okay. So there's the three sections, if I can talk. So this is what we say about the city. The right to work state. I want to point out a couple of things to you. This fully funded rainy day fund, you know how big that is? $18.4 billion that the state has in reserves. It's massive. It's huge. We are solid as a state. We got great business incentives. Georgia Power is an amazing partner in terms of economic development. I love their helicopter. When we bring prospects into town, they're tremendous partners. There's a lot of A-level players in economic development here in our state. You know about the number one place to do business stuff. Another thing is a single factor apportionment. So you're only taxed on your gross receipts in Georgia. California tries to tax you on everything. It's ridiculous. So we're a large economy. We're growing 1.6 million millennial residents, including me. You're not supposed to laugh. And it is a great place to live. And what we know, the reason this slide's important is I know a lot of decisions to locate or relocate are made by people who are not in the room. So a spouse or a partner wants to know, if you're going to move to a new community, what are the schools like? Is it livable? Is it affordable? I mean, we all know the story of the airport, but is Atlanta a great place to live? It is. It really is. And I've told Denise before, we don't have a beach, but we have the Beltline, and you guys are a big part of that. And it's a big attractor. It's an amazing thing that you guys are doing. A lot of words, but we're making more people, more knowledge workers. And I want to point this out. Georgia Tech leads the nation in the number of engineering and bachelor's degrees awarded. So Raheem Baya, who is a Leadership Atlanta classmate of Denise and I as the dean of the school, he makes more black engineers than any college in America. Microsoft, Google, a lot of those big companies are here in a large measure because they can get diverse talent. It's hard to do almost anywhere else in America. Think about it. We have that. That is a huge selling advantage for our city. There's a book called The End of the World is Just Beginning. It's a fascinating read about demographics. The End of the World is Just Beginning. Pick it up. What the author says is that China is going to lose, Italy is going to lose, a lot of Europe is going to lose because they're going the wrong way demographically. We're going the right way here in Atlanta. Our population is growing, and look at the bachelor's degrees and the median age. We're a young city. And there sometimes is a misconception. People say, is Atlanta affordable? Look, we're cheaper than Dallas. We're certainly cheaper than Chicago. When you compare some of the West Coast cities and New York, we rock the free world. A number of companies have moved here because if you think about the East Coast of the United States, and we'll talk in a second about labor, Atlanta is a great, affordable, fun place to live and to do business. And people are coming. Look at the inward migration. So 60,000 people. We're the top 5 metros in the United States for people coming into our city. So we're growing both from inward migration and from organic growth. Where there's smoke, there's fire. You can see who the large employers are here in the state. Yeah, they got to sell a lot of chicken.
They're headquartered here?
No, they're headquartered in Florida. But this is aggregating large employers. We'll get to headquarters here in just a second. So what I want you to think about this chart is that our unemployment rate has rebounded significantly from COVID. And that's a sign of a healthy economy. If people that are here are now back to work, that means our community is working, our business community is high functioning. So look at employment growth. Atlanta recorded greater private sector employment growth than in any year in the past 2 decades in 2022. So our employees are here, and again, we're high functioning. In terms of office using industries, the one on the left is called gross metro product, and that's a definition of all the goods and services sold in a community. And Atlanta is back. You can see we returned right there in the first quarter of 2021 to pre-pandemic levels, and sales of services and goods in Atlanta have continued to escalate. And fire, you can see the line, the sort of light green line, the fire industry, finance, insurance, and real estate have grown most quickly in terms of employment in our town. Let's talk about tech, because tech is, yes, ma'am.
In your last slide, where it said office using employment, so you're saying that graph is showing actually in the office?
No. It's people who are knowledge workers, not where they work, what they do for a profession.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that too. So tech is such a key to us. Look at on the bottom right, 6 of the 10 largest U.S. payment processing firms in America are Georgia-based. We move a lot of money through here. The reason that actually occurred is because when they had to process checks, we had a very important airport. And so a lot of the early fintech companies came because we processed a lot of checks at the airport. And so the entrepreneurs and the ideas came from that community. So fintech is huge. And tech has had a little bit of a blip. I had lunch about a month ago with the global head of real estate of Alphabet Google, and they've cut back their hiring, but they're still hiring significantly. And by the way, Alphabet Google, to your point, they're back 5 days. One of the big reasons is what they call the speed of business. If you and I are trying to get a meeting and it takes me 7 days to get on your calendar, that's one thing for a Teams meeting, or I could just walk down the hall and say, hey, have you thought about this project? And you go, yes, and then we solve the problem in 30 minutes as opposed to waiting. Talk about HBCU for a second. Now, there's a little bit of a misconception. It's not just HBCU that is educating minorities, as you heard about Georgia Tech, but there's some really interesting things happening on the bottom right. As you probably know, Netflix CEO wrote a check for $40 million each to Morehouse and Spelman. It was the largest gift to Morehouse College in the school's 153-year history. You may be aware of the Apple Propel Center, the IBM Quantrum Center to provide diverse talent access to tech. And then it's not on there, but Jay Bailey, also our Leadership Atlanta classmate, has the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurship, which is focused on building Black businesses in our community. And if you haven't been down there, it is amazing. It's incredible what we are accomplishing. Before COVID, and certainly in 2015, I was very worried about our HBCU legacy. I'm not anymore. I mean, it's not perfect, but there's been an ocean of money that's poured in that's really helped the HBCU community get going. And that's important to all of our success. So some success stories. Garrett, who started Flock Safety, he got a big deal done in January of 2022. I talked to him about it at the time. he could see cloudy days ahead. He was right. So you can see some of the winners. And in 2021, tech funding hit a record of $3.5 billion invested. So the tech community in Atlanta is here. We hear a lot about San Francisco, but AI will make its way here too. AI is blowing up in San Francisco, and it's going to make its way here too. So tech job growth, you just look, it's more rapid. This is in large measure what's going to heal any of the pain that we're experiencing in Atlanta, and I think it's going to be a part of the office economy, because the biggest tech companies want people in the office. There's a misnomer that tech is all virtual and all remote, but that's not true. Where are the tech firms located? Look at the gray, number 5 in Buckhead. Workday, Amazon, Full Story, Kugenda, Salesforce, and CoStar have significant offices here. There are others, of course, but you can see it's spread throughout the city. Interestingly, there's a burgeoning tech corridor up in Alpharetta. And those communities, by the way, are very focused on tech talent. They've got economic development initiatives and efforts that are focused. So as a community, I want to encourage Buckhead to think of the same way. You probably already are, but just don't miss the ball on that.
How do you define tech specifically? I was kind of surprised to see ADP on there. I don't think of them as a tech company.
It's a good question. I don't know. They don't make food. I think it's probably the more general. Our research team is Cushman Wakefield Research. I think they assumed
technology as a service. Like they use their technology. You use their technology as a service, or it might not be you as a consumer, but maybe it's others. But the business might be.
I mean, in the Midtown core, it's pretty easy to see most of those are tech companies. But Denise, I take your point. Look, in the Northwest Battery, they put Truist as a tech company, which it is not. So I don't. The source of truth on that is something I'll have to look into. I don't know. Yeah, nobody's hears from Truist. They're the opposite of tech. So where tech talent lives, and it's based on SIC codes, and you can't read what occupations are included, but this is based on some of our demographic research. It's no surprise that there's a big tech area in Atlanta itself, but look, where you live in Brookhaven, Denise, there's a lot of tech talent there, and a growing and burgeoning area in Dunwoody, which Denise's husband Michael is working on as well. Yeah, you can tell him I gave him a plug. Or maybe not, I don't know. All right, now let's talk about the headquarters.
Back to a second.
Sure.
Sorry. I'm surprised to not see a Alpharetta contingent on there.
Yeah.
Because that's where, like, a lot of the Atlanta Tech Village, that's where they all live.
Yep.
So I'm surprised with the corridor that's popping up that you mentioned before. I've always kind of assumed it was popping up because they all lived up there. But
showing up on here. Maybe the data is not perfect. I don't know. But I mean, there's certainly some people in Alpharetta who are wearing mock turtlenecks and have German Shepherds. So I don't know. I don't know. So we're the third ranked city with the most Fortune 500 companies after New York and Houston, and that's something we ought to be very proud of. You can see where they're located, and they're evenly spread out, which I think is healthy as well, around the city from the Midtown core all the way up, even up to 85. We represent Primerica, for example, and graphic packaging, some great clients. And so you can see who they are on here. And I can send this list to you if you'd like to get the data. 31 of the Fortune 500 are located here. I love this chart because it shows, and it's really not been reported so much, but you can see the amount of inbound companies that are coming to Atlanta. Now, I will admit some of this was pre-COVID, but they're still here. Google has 13 floors. Have you been through their space? It's so cool. It's called the Atlanta Mixtape. There's a whole studio in there where you can go pick up a guitar and a drum and record, and it's incredible what they've done. And the Atlanta Mixtape takes the Atlanta hip hop and music scene and tells a story throughout their space. So there's some interesting companies that are coming to Atlanta. All right, let's talk about office for a second. 5 fast facts. Our unemployment, as you saw earlier, is below the U.S. average. Suburban demand. Remember during COVID, we said the suburbs, we didn't know what was going to happen. First of all, retail was going to die, and the suburbs were never going to come back, but that's not true. Number 3, there's been what we call pull ahead kind of activity. People are renewing early. So Primerica, I mentioned, renewed 5 years early. I can't tell you a lot about the transaction, but they saved a ton of money. So that's the kind of activity we're seeing now. People are renewing early because they had a sale on real estate. And you can cut your bottom line. You can get back some space now. Suburban vacancy held steady. And number 5, this puzzles me, and you'll see a little bit more about it in a second, but asking rent averages reached a new high. Does anybody know why that might be? Why would a landlord in this market continue to ask more and more for their building? I think inflation is a good theory, but a landlord derives value by the cash flow and the credit of the tenants. And so to the extent that the cash flow continues to go up, now what's going on behind the scenes is they're giving tenant improvement allowances and free rent. So they're paying for the paint up front, and they're still trying to create a higher value asset because the asking rental rates are super high. Very rarely do we see people who want to concede on the rental rate. They give free rent instead. And American public companies now have to straight line all of that. So they can play their little game and we don't care, but they get value out of it. So net leasing activity, 4.2 million square feet of new leasing activity in 2023. There were 3 new leases greater than 50,000 feet in the second quarter. Most of the transactions, 61% of the activity is less than 20,000 feet. And we'll talk about Buckhead here in just a second, but I bet if you talk to your leasing teams, you're seeing smaller and smaller transactions. And I believe, by the way, the corporates are wrong. I wrote an article called "Are We Putting on Skinny Jeans Before Thanksgiving?" in which I believe that we're taking too little space, because in 25, when the world comes back and we start hiring again, and oh, by the way, post-COVID, we need more space, I think we're taking too little space. But as a tenant rep, I'm happy about that because I can fix problems and get paid to do it in 25. Net absorption. Does that term net absorption, everybody need to, you know what net absorption is? No?
I don't.
Okay, so if we had a market that's 1 million feet and somebody came to that market and built a building, and then we leased 100,000 feet, we had net absorption of 100,000 feet. However, another tenant left the market and took 50,000 feet and moved to Alpharetta. So our net absorption was not 100,000, it was only 50,000 feet. So move-ins minus move-outs is net absorption. And our occupancy gains were the second highest in the nation, next to San Jose, but net absorption is dipping. And so we got to watch that. One of the issues that Atlanta and sort of the Eastern Seaboard have had is that it's easy to develop office buildings. And Boston, they have much of a less of a problem than we do because you can't build in Boston. In New York, it's hard to build new office buildings. But we've been building like drunken sailors. And so we had some record-breaking office supply. And as you can see, nearly 2 million square feet is under construction in Atlanta, 69% of which is concentrated in Midtown. A lot of people had the good idea at the same time. That's what happened to Buckhead last time. Remember that Wall Street Journal article in 2012 that said we had 5 new buildings delivering at the same time, and Peter Grant wrote a glowing article about Buckhead saying that it would be a decade until that space absorbed. He was wrong, 24 months. But he forgot you can lower prices. So you can see the direct rental rate on the CBD, that CBD overall vacancy is going up as compared to suburban vacancy. Had a modest uptick in suburban vacancy. Best in class, so there's a flight to quality that's going on. But the best-in-class new construction deliveries caused the rate in CBD to climb 27.6%. So let's talk about Buckhead for a second. There are 52 active tenants in the market today. We had our tenants in the market meeting yesterday. Some of the notable tenants that are out there, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Morris Manning & Martin, Greenberg, a law firm I represent called Thompson Hine, and there are several other deals. As I talked to the team yesterday and today, activity in Buckhead is actually okay. It's more than it has been in a while. I think that's low, the 923,000. I think it's maybe more like 1 million, 1.2 million of requirements that are out. And you can see the size of transactions. Again, 22 between 10 and 19,000 or 20,000 feet. But we're going to see that for a while, the trend of smaller transactions.
So does active tenant mean they're here now and looking for space to renew it, or does that mean, like, who is it we heard recently? Forget, is it Morris Manning? That was like they're looking everywhere and making the point of that they're not necessarily just looking in Buckhead. Is that taken into consideration all of them? It
would take into consideration. So if you're a Buckhead-based company and you're out looking for space, we consider you to be active in the market, even if you're looking in Midtown. So yes is the answer. And my company represents Morris Manning, so I can't say what they're going to do. I will observe in general that people, if you've been in a location for a long time and you look at the labor shed of where people live, it's like a donut. Everybody's around here. So it never say never, but it's many times hard for employers to move large offices unless there's some big hiring event or something else going on.
So 52 a good number, a bad number? What's it relative, to what's a typical year?
Yeah. I mean, in 2019, we probably had double that. In the middle of the pandemic, nothing. So, I mean, we're coming back. Now, the net absorption is a thing to watch. I mean, we're going the wrong way. We have the highest vacancy in Atlanta that we've had in modern history. But as Colin said, Cousin's CEO the other day, he said the office building isn't obsolete. What's obsolete is obsolete office buildings. And I was talking to some of you about Embassy Road. You know where that's located? So it's in central perimeter, or perimeter as we don't call it, off of Georgia 400 behind North Park Town Center. There's 6 buildings, and I toured the Art Institute building yesterday. Jeff got 11 offers on the building yesterday. All of them want to demolish it. All of the buildings at Embassy Road will be demolished and become multifamily. It is Bridge. Yeah. And so now we ought to pause, and everybody wants to figure out how to put multifamily in office buildings. There are a couple of problems with that, as Denise and I have discussed. First of all, the bay depths. Office buildings are too deep. You can't get light in there. If you think about your apartment, if you live in an apartment, it's a much shallower floor plate. And office buildings go typically 40 feet from the window mullions to the core, and it's just too deep. The second thing is an architectural challenge. When you talk to architects, if you're going to convert, even if you solve the light problem, it's basically concrete and dirt. New HVAC, new electrical, new plumbing, new lighting. I mean, might as well rip everything out. So all you're doing is saving the infrastructure of the concrete, and many times it's cheaper just to tear the whole thing down and build it right. Which means that a lot of office buildings in the urban cores of America will continue to be office buildings. There's just no other use. And there's a cleansing of the market that's going on now, one way to look at it, because we got a little rationally exuberant in 2019. And then when values reset, I firmly believe that we will continue to use office space. We're not going to be in our bunny slippers for forever. I hope. A wordy chart, I'm sorry, but I just want to point out the third bullet point, we recorded positive occupancy gains, largely driven by Buckhead and the AT&T reoccupying of the Bridge campus. So thank you, AT&T. Direct rent in Buckhead surpassed the $39 mark for the first time in recent history. So I think Buckhead is getting a lot of looks because our friends in Midtown kind of got proud of themselves. And it's very expensive to be in Midtown. It's cool and all that, but the pendulum is going to swing back a little bit to Buckhead, especially when you get great. Denise has got a great Why Buckhead thing put together now, and team. Okay, you're gonna tell the story. I won't steal your thunder. But we have to be realistic. Class A 30.2, highest vacancy that we've had in modern times. So we're going to hit the gas. We have to get more folks to come here. So there's a lot of opportunity in Buckhead office. Last thing I want to talk about, by the way, I'm 25 minutes in, so is just some of the leases. I mentioned AT&T, they came back and took 130,000 feet back at Lenox Park, and there were a few smaller transactions on the left-hand side. The largest availability is our friends at Rubenstein, who have 870,000 feet available. They've got a great lobby. Gensler did a great job on it. It's next to the MARTA station, and they're trying really hard. I know the asset manager, and they're digging in. So hopefully they'll hit a big one. And then Parkside at Lenox Park, the bridge facility with an office of 350,000 feet. And then Brand is delivering, as you know, Garden Hills. It's 78% pre-lease. Some of that is with friends and family companies, and that little building is going to be fine. So that is the slides that I have to present. Do you have questions about office space, or we can have a short discussion, Katie, if you'd like.
What about the sublease market, and how does that play into like vacancy rates? And I always hear there's so much stuff on the sublease market.
Yeah.
How do you take that into consideration?
Well, the rates that I presented are all direct, but you ask a very good question, because I think there's going to be a lot of attention on subleases because the cost to build out space is crazy. I'm hearing $250 a foot to build out new office space, and then you still got to buy the furniture. So more and more people are going to take a look at subleases, and what we're seeing is a trend where landlords want to get control of the furniture. Before, furniture went to the dump. We didn't want it. Landlords didn't care about the furniture. Now they care a lot. They want you to leave their stuff. If you don't want it, leave it, and we'll figure it out, because it's so expensive. And therefore, subleases are getting a lot of attention. The other thing, subleases lead to is the issue of buildings that are unhealthy in terms of their financial. We talked to some of us about some of the buildings that are here in Buckhead that are hitting hard times. Have you heard of the issue of the zombie building yet?
Saw that the other day.
Yeah. So a zombie building, it first occurred in 2009 and 10. And are you familiar with commercial mortgage-backed securities, CMBS loans? So CMBS loans are owned by thousands of people. There's no one owner of the loan. And it's big pools. A lot of it is Chinese money, foreign investment. And so that basically they're bonds that are used to indebt a building. So here's a scenario. Let's say we all own an office building. It's $100 million, make it simple. And we collectively put in $30 million of equity. And the rest is debt, and it's CMBS debt. Unfortunately, our $100 million asset is now only worth $50 million. So we lost our equity. I'm real sorry about that. Let's start drinking. Now we walk away because we're like, nothing for us to do here anymore. And the lender takes the building back. But because it's owned by thousands of people, there's something called a special servicer. And most special servicers are based out of New York, and they're operated by kids that are 25 years old that have an MBA, and they don't care, and they have 35 files on their desk. So a zombie building occurs when we can't find the owner. We have difficulty finding who is in charge of the building. And the issue isn't the roof or the major infrastructure, because they'll take care of that. It's what I call the elevator light button or button light problem. They're minor things that we can't, the door squeaks, the bathroom door squeaks, the handle fell off, and we can't find somebody to fix that. So we're working real hard this time to keep people out of zombie buildings and to negotiate language where all the money that the landlord committed is in escrow, including our security deposit in case they default. And then after we take occupancy, we want limited self-help to be able to fix that. The bathroom door handle, just to get it repaired, so we can continue to use the office space. But I think the moral of the story is, I know you don't do what I do for a living, but if you have friends and they're looking around for office space, that's awesome. But make sure they're pulling TREP reports and being very careful about the financial health of the landlords that they're investigating.